Hello everyone, Mariko Berg, Realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and I am loving this crisp fall sunny weather, and I hope you guys are too. I'm getting some sun coming in and the sun keeps moving all over the place, so the video might get very bright, but no complaints, right? In today's vlog, I'm going to be talking about different taxes that I think that you guys should be aware of when you're purchasing a property. I always want my buyers to be as educated as possible and just crystal clear on exactly what their closing costs are going to be at the time of completion. So that's really why I wanted to put this video together, is just so that you guys can all know that too, and just be aware of exactly what you're purchasing and how much it's going to cost. So what I will say is that, obviously I'm a realtor, I'm servicing the Lower Mainland, and we're dealing with these kind of things all the time. So it's my job to be aware of the different taxes and be able to speak to those. But I am not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a realtor. And so if you're looking for specific advice on a problem that you've already incurred, I'm not going to be your best contact. I always try as hard as possible to answer all your guys' questions and give you whatever information I can give you. But if you are going through a specific problem, I strongly recommend that you do talk to your accountant or your lawyer. But of course, if you're looking for just basic purchasing information or tax information or something like that, definitely feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I'll do my best to help you guys with whatever I can. But diving right into it, let's start off with property transfer tax. So one thing I always like to clarify is this is not to be confused with your property taxes. Those are paid on an annual basis. The property transfer tax is paid on a transactional basis. So it's something that usually the notary or the lawyer is adding in for you on the statement of adjustments when they're basically putting together the debits and credits and telling you how much funds you need to close to purchase that property. So the way that you calculate it is based on the purchase price. So it's a sliding scale, 1% on the first $200K, 2% on the balance up to the $2 million mark. Above $2 million, it's an additional 3%, and then above $3 million, it's an additional 2%. So that's how you calculate the property transfer tax. And so there are some exemptions that I do like to tell people about if you're a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident and you're purchasing a resale property under the $500,000 mark and you're a first-time home buyer, then you may be eligible for the first-time home buyer property transfer tax exemption. So again, this is for properties that qualify under the $500,000 mark. So for example, on a $500,000 purchase, the property transfer tax is $8,000. So I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and I know that most of my first-time home buyers are really excited to hear that they might be able to save $8,000 because when you're dealing with such a milestone purchase like this and it's your first time, that's quite a bit of money. So it's something to be aware of and just something to know, because if you don't know that and you're a first-time home buyer and you purchase at $501,000, then you need to pay that property transfer tax. So definitely something that you should know and that your realtor should be talking to you about. Another one to note is the newly built home exemption for property transfer tax. So if you're purchasing a property, it doesn't matter if you're a first-time home buyer or if this is your 5th, 10th, whatever home that you've purchased. If you're purchasing a pre-sale property, new build property, or substantially renovated property, something that qualifies in that realm of things under the $750,000 mark, then you will likely be eligible for this newly built home exemption. So that's another one that you guys should look into if you are purchasing a pre-sale property. So moving on, foreign buyers tax is a really hot topic in the areas that I service, Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley, Lower Mainland basically, because the foreign buyers tax came into place. So that's 20% on the purchase price. And it's, really important to know that this is an additional property transfer tax. So in addition to the property transfer tax that I just told you guys about, that 1% on the first 200K, 2% on the balance, etc., foreign buyers are going to have to pay that, and then they're also going to have to pay an additional 20%. So if you are not a Canadian citizen and you are not a permanent resident and you're looking to purchase in the areas that the foreign buyers tax applies to, so for example, Metro Vancouver or the Fraser Valley, you are going to have to pay this 20% foreign buyers tax in addition to your PTT, your property transfer tax. And there's no way to get out of this. And so one thing to note is that if you are applying or you have already applied for your permanent residency and you're just waiting for it, If the completion ends up happening prior to you getting your permanent residency, you are still going to have to pay that foreign buyer's tax. You may be eligible for a refund, but that's something that you're going to need to submit an application for. So something to be aware of. If you are in the process of getting your permanent residency and you're really, really close, you might just want to wait, but it kind of depends on your situation. So that's something to think about. I did just have a client recently that is a Canadian citizen, but he is a non-resident, and he was wondering if he was going to have to pay this additional foreign buyer's tax. And I called the helpline and they said no, as long as you can prove your Canadian citizenship and you have proof of SIN, your social insurance number, then you do not have to pay. So something to definitely check in. Foreign buyer's tax, definitely something you want to be aware of. It's a good chunk of change. So next is GST, so goods and services tax. So this is applicable for pre-sale properties. So for example, one that's going to be sold from the developer, or again, newly built homes, substantially renovated homes. And so that's 5% of the purchase price. You may be eligible for a GST rebate. If you're purchasing under the $450,000 mark, they do have partial rebates. And if you're purchasing under the $350,000 mark for a newly built property, then you are going to be, or you may be eligible for a GST rebate, which is calculated as 36% of the 5%. So it's not just a full 5% you get off for GST. It doesn't work like that. It's typically calculated, the rebate is 36% of the 5% if you're looking for the full amount. So GST is something you should definitely be aware of. For all of my contracts, regardless of whether I am aware that the seller has paid the GST or not, CRA has been coming around and, saying that, oh, we're going to charge double GST on pre-sale properties, for example, that were just vacant because the intention was just to flip them and make money on them. So I never want my buyers to have to pay that GST. So I just always put in the contract to make it crystal clear that, regardless of whether GST has been paid, if something comes back later on, that GST is always included in the purchase price. So something to be aware of again. And so the last one here is with regards to sellers, but I always think it's important for buyers to be aware of too. So this is the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, non-resident withholding tax. So if the seller is a non-resident that is selling a property in Canada, then they may be subject to a 25 to 50% withholding tax on the net profits of that sale. It's always going to be best if the seller gets the certificate of compliance, basically approving the sale and saying that, basically just reporting that they are selling the property as a non-resident and that they're going to have to declare their taxes and any profits that they made for that current year. If they get that certificate of compliance beforehand, that's always the best thing to do, but a lot of sellers aren't aware of this and realtors don't make them aware of this. So sellers, if you're a non-resident, make sure that you're talking to your accountant on the best steps to preparing your home for sale and making sure that you're not going to have to deal with that withholding tax for an extended period of time and that it's not going to affect your completion. The reason why it's important for buyers is because if the seller doesn't have enough profit or equity in the property to close on the sale, then the CRA might come after you for that withholding tax, that 25 or 50%. So buyers, pay attention to the contract of purchase and sale if the seller has declared themselves as a non-resident or a resident. Just because if the seller is a non-resident, doesn't have enough funds, and hasn't completed that certificate of compliance, you may be able to hold back that percentage of your purchase price to make sure that the CRA doesn't come after you for that. Now, usually this is done by the notary or the lawyer. So again, if you're a seller or if you're a buyer that is realized that you're purchasing a property from a non-resident, just make sure that your notary or lawyer is aware of the situation so that they can look into that and just make sure that the withholding tax is out of the way. Sellers, for you to know, the withholding tax right now to get that certificate of compliance and make sure everything's good, I would say the wait time is, consistently about 2 or 3 months. They might say it's about a month, but usually it's about 3. So just be aware of that moving forward. And so yeah, you guys, this is really the top things that I really think that you should know when you're purchasing a property, just different taxes to be aware of and different exemptions that you should be aware of just in case you qualify for them. So as always, again, my name is Mariko, BRIDGEWELL Real Estate Group. I'm a realtor that services most of the Lower Mainland. So if you do have any questions about purchasing in the areas or selling in the areas that we're talking about and the different taxes that might apply to you or the process or closing costs and all of those things that you should really know about, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to help, and I hope that this video was really, really helpful. Have a great day, guys.